Oh, wow. So we are absolutely getting into that time of the month, like towards the end of the month, where a lot of people fall short and can really appreciate bare bones recipe. I have a recipe here. I don't even know if I should call it a recipe or really an assembly of two ingredients, two common ingredients. And what can you do with these two common ingredients where many people already have it in the first place? You can make pizza crust with it. I know we've been talking a lot about pizza, but pizza really fills the heart and fills the soul, and you can do whatever you want topping wise. But where people struggle and spend a lot of money on things is actually the crust. And there are many options to do a crust. We've already talked about doing the English muffin pizzas, or maybe people like to get like Italian bread and do it that way. But I have a two ingredient one for you. You may be interested in. What are the two ingredients? You're probably wondering. You won't believe it. All you're going to need is 1 cup of self rising flour. There, yeah, yeah. And 1 cup of Greek, no fat, non fat Greek yogurt. Non fat Greek yogurt. Just plain old, good old non fat Greek yogurt. So that's two ingredients, literally. Now, here's where people have a little bit of an ish. They may not always have self rising flour. Instead, they have all purpose flour. Not to despair, because you can turn regular flour, okay, regular all purpose flour, into a self rising flour very easily, okay? So let's say that you have 2 cups of regular flour. All you need to do is add 1 tablespoon of baking powder, which more than likely you have in your pantry, right? And also a half a teaspoon of salt. Combine it together. Voila. You just turn that into self rising flour. Hello. I think that's great. And if you had all these ingredients already available in your pantry, like we've discussed this recently about having things of which we can build upon a future recipe, I think that's amazing. All right. So having said that, putting together, let's say we put this together. In this case, we're going to need only 1 cup of self rising flour to 1 cup of the non fat Greek yogurt. All right. You're going to mix that together gently, and that's going to formulate into like sort of like a ball. Okay. And then what you're going to do is take some floured hands and you're going to knead it down with your floured hands. All right. And that's after you had made the ball. You take that ball and then you flour it, flour your hands and then put it to any shape you want, rectangular or circular, whatever shape you want. In the meantime, what you're doing, you're preheating your oven to 400 degrees. Now, some people have those, silicone or whatever way you call it, the mat. What I do, because I don't have one of those, what I do in the meantime instead, and it works for me, and I haven't had an issue with it, I take aluminum foil and I spray that with nonstick. Okay. Sometimes I make it rectangular. Sometimes I make it, round, whatever. And that's what works for me. So that's preheating. What I'm doing there in the meantime, I'm making my shape, I make my little edges around it. Okay. And then I intend to bake this off for about, I check on it at 400 degrees and start checking on it, maybe ready for you at the 13-minute mark. Okay, depends on your oven. All ovens vary. So anywhere between 13 and 15 minutes. Okay, so what some people like to do is maybe at the 10-minute mark, some people do this, they'll put their toppings on at the 10-minute mark and then put it back into the 13-minute or the 15-minute, and that's up to you. A lot of mistakes that people make when it comes to pizza is that they put way too much sauce. Don't get me wrong, I love sauce too, but don't get me wrong. But too much sauce kind of messes around with the crust, in my opinion. I could be wrong. I could be wrong. And what some other people do is they add their like seasonings and stuff to the top of the crust with a little non-stick and just throw that in too while it's baking off initially for the first 10 minutes or so. So the beauty part is, as far as topping goes, well, the sky is the limit. It's what you like and what you have, what you want to work with. So at the end of the day, that's how it works. So I would suggest that at about 10 minutes, you pull it out, okay, and then you put on your toppings, and then you put it back in for another few minutes. Just keep an eyeball on it until your cheese or whatever it is you have on there, it's nice and melty and nice and cooked. I mean, how easy and simple is that? How inexpensive. I love doing things like that. And to transform, this is why I'm a strong suggester of having the ingredients to, make other ingredients for the future, like turning regular all-purpose flour easily into self-rising flour, not just for pizza dough crust, but for any reason. If you need self-rising flour, just take the flour, like for example, the 2 cups of the flour, the 1 tablespoon of baking powder. Make sure it's baking powder. A lot of people have a tendency to confuse it. So 1 tablespoon baking powder and a half of teaspoon of salt. So enjoy. I hope this helps someone out today, or at least gives you an idea. It may not necessarily even be this recipe, but I hope that it gives you an idea. I want to also talk to you today before I forget. I was curious about creating an oatmeal crust. Now I said maybe there is such a thing, right? And it turns out there is such a thing. There's like an oat crust. It's sort of like an oatmeal cookie kind of a crust. So you could make that in advance for, let's say, for example, if you make like a no bake cheese cake, or some sort of a creamy pie, or any sort of mixture that you could just put in after it's all said and done. You make your crust, you bake it off for a few minutes. And from what I recall, the ingredients are really basic. You could just look it up in those recipe type places, those websites or whatever. And you could definitely look it up. You could get some literally for like 5 ingredients or less. And anytime it's a bare bones time. And these ingredients, it sounds like a lot of ingredients, but not really. One of them involves quick oats. Quick oats, if I'm not mistaken, quick oats, brown sugar, and some form of a rising agent, and flour. You'll find out. I don't have it right in front of me, but if you're interested enough, I'll tell you the truth, it's worth a try. It really is, because not that there's anything wrong, for example, with graham cracker crust. We love them, but maybe we want a different variation. And the idea of the oats, it also gives it sort of like a healthy bounce to it, in my honest opinion. So there are ways and there are ways, and I'm so glad that you had an opportunity to drop by here this afternoon. Thank you so much. Thanks so much for being here. I really do appreciate everyone's time. Don't forget to smash down the like button. That's really, really helpful to the channel. Have an amazing, fantastic day. Take good care of yourself and your wonderful family.